Everything you see, feel, dream of, or touch is communicating with you in a single language, vibration. Not the language of writing, not the voice of human speech, but the deep rhythm of frequency. The universe does not speak, but it is never silent. It is always sending signals. Every star, every speck of dust, every fleeting emotion in your mind, all are broadcasting. There are no exceptions. There is no muteness, only those who do not know how to listen. The material world is only the surface of a vast ocean of frequency. A rock has its own frequency. A piece of music has its own frequency. A loving glance or a jealous thought, each carries a measurable field of oscillation. And if the universe responds to you with exactly what you emit, then you cannot blame circumstances. You are living in a system of absolute precision, where the principle of exchange does not happen through words, but through energy. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt suffocated, even though no one spoke? Have you ever thought of someone and that person suddenly called you minutes later? That is not coincidence. That is evidence that the frequency you emitted reached into the space of another. This world is not as separate as you once believed. It is a web of intersecting waves. And you, every day, are sending out a vibrational code whether you are aware of it or not. Frequency does not distinguish between right and wrong, good and evil, noble or base. It only reflects honestly what you are emitting. Just as water does not choose which objects fall into it, frequency simply responds according to the principle of synchronization. If you emit the frequency of fear, you will encounter circumstances that prolong that fear. If you sustain the frequency of gratitude, opportunities and expansion will gradually approach without needing to be chased. This language requires no study. You have used it long before you learned to speak. When you cried as a child, it was not because you understood what tears were, but because you were communicating through the vibration of raw emotion. The problem is that as you grew up, you were taught to use words, yet forgot how to listen to the deeper layer where everything is truly transmitted. Your body is a biological transmitter. Your heart does not merely pump blood, it emits a magnetic field thousands of times stronger than the brain. And it is that field, a subtle wave of vibration, that the universe first hears from you. Before you utter a prayer, before you act, the frequency within you has already been sent out as a wordless message. Frequency is not distant or vague. It is as concrete as a heartbeat, as an EEG, as light itself. Science has measured alpha waves when you meditate, gamma waves when you are in states of peak inspiration, beta waves when you worry. The question is not whether you emit frequency. The question is which kind, and whether you consciously regulate it or allow it to be driven by habit, environment, or old memory. Understanding that frequency is the language of the universe, you will stop asking why what you desire does not arrive. It is not because you have not tried hard enough. It is not because you are unworthy. It is because the frequency you are living in is different from the frequency of what you seek. The universe does not hear your words. The universe responds to the vibration you sustain. And that vibration is not determined by a fleeting thought, but by the inner state repeated each day. If you constantly think of lack, even while speaking of wealth, the true frequency you send is still lack. If you pray for peace, but live in anxiety and control, the wave you emit is not peace. The universe does not receive requests. The universe receives frequency, and frequency always tells the truth. When you realize this, a new door opens. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You become a deliberate broadcaster. You no longer hope for something to come. You learn to generate a field compatible with what you desire. And the miracle begins when synchronization occurs, not because you are lucky, but because you have become precise, like a note aligning with the greater symphony. Each morning you wake, you are not just a worker, a father, a mother, a child. You are a vibrational unit, a mobile transmitter, a source of energy influencing an informational field larger than yourself. Every choice you make, every emotion you retain, is like adjusting the invisible dial of frequency within you. And true change begins not from external effort, but from inner calibration. This is not philosophy. This is how everything operates. And if you continue using the language of words to change your life, you will remain trapped on the surface layer. But when you begin adjusting your vibrational state, your entire life will shift like a compass lightly touched. yet enough to steer the whole ship into a new voyage. There is no need to shout to be heard, no need to struggle to be loved. You only need to broadcast the right frequency. And when you emit the right frequency, what belongs to you will come as naturally as water flows to the sea, as an echo returns to its original sound. The universe does not speak human language, but it understands every frequency you emit. And that is why, to change reality, you do not need to shout, you only need to change the wave. Have you ever wondered, if no one hears you speak, if no one reads what you write, if no one knows what you are thinking, does the world around you truly know you exist? The answer is yes. Not because of the glance of someone who once looked at you, not because of the traces you leave on social media, but because you are always broadcasting. Whether you speak or not, whether you believe it or not, every living moment of yours emits an unceasing vibrational field. And the universe, unlike humans, does not need to see, hear, or read anything. The universe only needs to sense the frequency you are being. Every person is a broadcast station, but not everyone knows what they are transmitting. Many broadcast fear but believe they are broadcasting desire. They emit signals of lack while convinced they are moving toward wealth. They transmit vibrations of doubt but pray with words full of faith. That contradiction does not lie in intention, but in the state maintained by body, emotion, and soul together. Like a radio transmitter not tuned to the right channel, the signal will be faint, distorted, and no one will truly hear the message you send out. But when the frequency within you is clear, unwavering, without conflict, the entire universe turns toward you, not because you begged, but because you matched the wave. This is not true only in moments of prayer or meditation. It is true at all times. You broadcast when you breathe. You broadcast when you are silent. You broadcast when you envy, and you also broadcast when you are grateful. What you think is only one part. The emotion you attach to that thought is the true signal transmitted, and your body, from nervous system, heartbeat, to cellular structure, functions as a living antenna. No one is outside this system. Whether you are a toddler just learning to walk, or an elderly person in silence, whether you shine on stage or live quietly in a crowded street, you are still broadcasting, never stopping, never disconnected. The only thing that changes is what you broadcast. And if what you broadcast has the power to shape reality, then the question for you now is, what are you sending into the invisible field of information surrounding you? Is it peace? Is it hidden resentment? Is it unspoken love? Is it sweet expectation or unhealed pain? That question does not need to be answered in words. But if you have begun to feel something shifting within you, a vague awareness awakening, then perhaps this is the moment you choose to live differently. Not as someone waiting for a miracle from outside, but as a deliberate broadcast station, recalibrating the signal from deep within yourself. Consider this the moment to start a new chapter, not with loud action, but with a subtle yet powerful declaration to yourself and to the intelligence of the universe, that you are ready to broadcast differently, that you choose to live from a higher frequency where the repetition of old limiting beliefs no longer exists, where you are no longer the reaction to circumstances, but the cause of every transformation. And if in this moment your heart feels a synchronized beat, a silent confirmation from within, then let it be broadcast to the world. It does not need much, just one word. Comment right below this, "I am ready," or simply the number 1. Not only so that I know of your presence, something invaluable to someone creating content like me, but also as a sacred milestone, that you have just signed a new covenant with yourself, that you have opened the frequency, that from here on, every vibration you emit will no longer be unconscious. It will be a living prayer, needing no words, no ritual, only your remembrance of who you are. A broadcast station does not need an audience. It only needs to emit the right frequency, and sooner or later, what is compatible will find its way, not by luck, but by the law of synchronization, always precise like a sacred symphony. You cannot wait for the world to change if the frequency within you remains old, but you also do not need to change the entire world. You only need to change the frequency you are living. Everything else will automatically reorganize. And do not think you must be perfect to begin. Even a weak vibrational signal can be amplified if you sustain it long enough. Do not let the past decide the wave you emit today. You are no longer the old version. Every moment, You are given the chance to send out a new signal. You are a living broadcast station. Every word, every decision, every choice to hold on or let go is an act of adjusting frequency, and no one can do it for you. Because only you know what you are truly transmitting. Only you can sense the subtle misalignment between what you want and what you truly believe you deserve. Choose to adjust. Choose to awaken. Choose to live as someone who knows, even if no one hears you, the universe is quietly responding. And if you have heard these words at the right time, then perhaps you did not come here by chance. You are a living broadcast station, and the world is waiting to hear the exact frequency that only you can emit. Every phenomenon in life does not appear by chance. They are the direct consequence of the frequency you have been and are broadcasting, not in isolated moments, but in the steady resonance of the inner state you maintain. The universe does not react to temporary wishes, but responds according to the consistency of the vibration you live with each day. No one can fake frequency. You may speak of peace, but if your heart is filled with tension, the universe only hears turmoil. You may pray for abundance, but if deep inside you are still living with the fear of lack, then the signal you send out is still lack. And what you receive will correspond to that, no matter how noble your words may be. The mechanism of reality is not governed by words, but by the foundational vibration within you. Each person emits a living signal, continuous, unconscious, and influential. That signal does not lie in language, but in a state of being. You do not attract what you think you want, you attract what you are. Just as a radio can only catch the wave to which it is tuned, you can only receive experiences corresponding to the energy you are broadcasting. If you live in fear, you will encounter circumstances that continue to feed that fear. If you sustain deep trust, you will meet situations that strengthen that trust. This is not a spiritual theory. This is a fundamental law of every energetic system in the universe. Everything that has form is only the outer surface of a vibrational field. Money is not merely paper or numbers. It is the physical expression of a frequency. Health is not merely biological function, but the result of the energetic field inside and around the body. Relationships are not just communication between two individuals, but the collision of two frequencies interacting. When you understand this, you stop seeking solutions on the surface. You begin to adjust from the root. The frequency you emit can be influenced by memories, subconscious beliefs, emotional patterns formed from childhood. But that does not mean you are bound forever. Frequency is not fixed. It responds to choice. And in every moment you can choose again, choose a different emotion, a different belief, a different action. When choice changes, the vibrational field changes. And when the vibrational field changes, reality must restructure. You cannot live in resentment and demand love. You cannot cling to inferiority and expect success. You cannot maintain the frequency of a victim and wait to be empowered. Every vibration carries an invisible chain of cause and effect, and they do not need your approval to operate. The universe does not favor anyone. It only does its work, reflecting what you emit. The world is not against you. The world is only playing the role of a mirror. If you often find yourself facing unpleasant things, do not be quick to conclude it is karma, misfortune, or the fault of others. Turn inward and ask, what is the foundational state I am maintaining? What emotion am I living with most each day? Am I aligned with what I truly want to receive? There is no magical formula more effective than examining the frequency you are living with, and there is no lasting change that begins from the outside. When the frequency inside you shifts, reality cannot help but respond, but it never answers sooner or later than the frequency. It is precise to a frightening degree. Precise enough that the awakened no longer dare to emit any vibration carelessly. That precision is a gift. It hands you complete authority to adjust your own life. No one can interfere with the signal you emit. No one can broadcast on your behalf. And no one can stop the response once the frequency has been transmitted clearly enough. This means a simple truth. When you change the wave, the world must change form. Not all responses arrive immediately. Some frequencies need time to resonate, but do not confuse delay with denial. A signal strong enough, steady enough, precise enough will always find its way back. One way or another it will appear. You do not need to chase it. You only need to hold your alignment. If you are living in waiting, ask yourself again, what am I really waiting for, or am I postponing living as if it has already come? For that is the pivot point of all reception. When you live as if what you desire is already real, you become the carrier wave of that message, and the universe, like every intelligent system, will receive the command and respond. Very few people know they are living within a field of waves where they are the central control. They think the world operates by luck, randomness, or is decided by external factors. But no one can send the signal for you, and no one can receive that signal except you. Every experience you have is the result of a specific wave you have chosen, perhaps unconsciously, perhaps by habit, but still a choice. Understanding this does not make life instantly easier, but it makes everything clear, and once clear, you no longer seek. You begin to broadcast differently, not because you try harder, but because you are more awake, not because you learned something new, but because you remembered this. Every vibration you emit carries creative power. What you broadcast will determine what you receive, not because of any imposed law, but because that is the nature of reality. It has no fault, it has no mercy, it has no favoritism. It only has honest reflection. And sometimes, it is that very honesty that becomes the doorway for you to step into the life you were born to live, the life that matches the highest frequency within you. A thought is never alone. It always carries a form of wave, an invisible yet real frequency. And like all waves, it needs a source of energy to propagate, to amplify, to anchor itself into reality. That source of energy is emotion. Thought is direction, but emotion is propulsion. A thought not nurtured by emotion is only a passing breeze. It comes and goes, leaving no trace. But when a thought is bound with deep emotion, it becomes a command, a vibrational signal packaged and sent straight into the informational field of the universe. Each time you think of something with your whole heart, you are transmitting a complete wave code. Thought gives it shape, emotion drives it far. That is why the things that move you deeply are often easier to manifest. Not because they are special, but because they are sent out with enough energy to break the barrier of the conscious layer. A cold, rational, calculated desire may be sharp, but it is weak, while a sincere desire, accompanied by intense emotion, radiates strongly even if it is not expressed in words. Emotion is the carrier wave in a transmission system. Thought is the data signal, and emotion is the energy that transports it. The deeper the emotion, the stronger the frequency. But not all emotions lead to the same outcome. Negative emotions such as anger, fear, envy are energy too, but they distort the signal, causing you to emit a frequency no longer aligned with what you truly want. And because the universe only responds to the exact wave, you will receive a distorted version of your desire. What confuses many lies here. They think that simply thinking positively is enough. But positive thought only has power when it is supported by the corresponding emotion. You may read hundreds of affirmations each day, but if deep inside there is still doubt, anxiety, or exhaustion, then what is being sent out is still the weak original vibration, not the words you just recited. The universe does not hear the words. The universe hears the energy accompanying them. If you say, "I am happy," but the accompanying feeling is forced, then the real message is, "I am not happy but trying to believe I am fine." And the universe will respond exactly to that distorted version, not to punish, but to reflect honestly what you are truly living with. This precision is not a limitation, it is an opportunity. Because when you recognize the role of emotion, you can begin to recalibrate your own broadcasting system. Emotion is not only a reaction, it is a tool of direction. You do not need to wait for emotion to occur. You can deliberately generate it, through visualization, through music, through memory, through deep presence in the moment. A good thought, when repeated and paired with genuine emotion, becomes a vibrational habit. And from habit, it becomes a field, a natural form of attraction, requiring no effort. This is why the strongest intuition often does not come from reason, but from a clear feeling that needs no explanation. It is the result of resonance between a clarified thought and a deepened emotion. When both align, the signal emitted is of high accuracy, causing compatible opportunities to naturally arrive, like iron drawn to a magnet, without invitation. But if you let your emotions be controlled by external conditions, then the wave you emit will constantly fluctuate. In the morning, you emit the frequency of inspiration. In the afternoon, you slip into the frequency of disappointment. And because the universe does not receive commands from desire, but from the frequency being sustained most strongly, you will see reality respond inconsistently, erratically. That is not because the world is confusing. It is because the signal you send is distorted. You do not need to control every thought, but you need to select the thoughts repeated, and especially those linked with strong emotion, for it is those combinations that become true commands. What is felt deeply will be recorded in the subconscious as original data, and once it is there, it becomes a default program, automatically running your life without needing another instruction. Understanding the role of emotion does not mean you must always be cheerful, positive, or try to eliminate lower vibrations. That is not realistic. But you can learn to observe emotion as an internal frequency meter. Unpleasant emotion is not wrong. It is a signal that you are drifting from what you truly want to broadcast. Pleasant emotion is not a reward. It is evidence that you are in sync with what you are aiming for. In this system, each person is the vibrational engineer of their own life. Thought is the blueprint. Emotion is the current. You can use both to redesign your entire field of living. And the wonder is, you do not need anyone's agreement. You do not need proof. You only need to live from the wave you want to receive. And all responses will come once the system begins to synchronize. Not everyone is taught how to combine thought and emotion as an art of living. But that is precisely why most live in paradox. They think one thing, feel another, and act from the conflict between those two layers. The result is a reality that repeats the chaos they cannot name. But when thought and emotion move in the same rhythm, in the same direction, without opposition, you become a broadcast station with the highest accuracy. And the universe cannot help but hear. In a world full of noise and change, the only thing you truly control is the signal you emit. And that signal begins with a thought, pushed forward by genuine emotion. If you want to change your life, do not start with action. Start with a thought clear enough, paired with an emotion deep enough. Everything else will be the natural response of a system already tuned. Prayer is not the act of using words to persuade a higher power to grant you what you lack. It is not a negotiation between the soul and an unreachable authority. Prayer is not begging, not complaining, and certainly not a fixed ritual repeated unconsciously. True prayer is a vibrational act, the adjustment of your inner frequency to align with the reality you wish to step into. In most traditions, prayer has often been misunderstood as a verbal act, a plea from the small toward an all-powerful being. But in the vibrational reality, words do not carry the power you think they do. The universe does not respond to language. The universe responds to frequency, and that makes genuine prayer an act of harmony, not a string of sounds uttered from the lips. Every time you ask for something, it means you are acknowledging that you do not have it. You are emitting the vibration of lack. Even if your words are praise, trust, or love, but if your inner state is worry, doubt, or waiting, then the true frequency you are transmitting is, I do not have, I am in need, I am waiting. And it is that very vibration that becomes the primary signal the universe receives and responds to. Prayer should not be a request, but an act of synchronization, not speaking aloud what you need, but living from the state in which it already exists. Prayer does not need to be spoken. It can happen in silence, in a deep breath, in a moment of gratitude without any specific object. For when you truly step into the vibration of presence, the presence of what you desire, you no longer need to ask. You have already become it. Effective prayer does not lie in repetition, nor in the intensity of your voice, nor in the place or the time. It depends on whether you can harmonize your frequency with what you are reaching for. It is a state of complete awareness, where mind, emotion, and will all emit one consistent wave, without doubt, without distraction. A true prayer is not a question sent out, but a living affirmation. Not, please heal me, but I am aligned with perfect health. Not, bring me peace, but I am living in the frequency of peace. The difference lies in where you stand. One side is lack, the other is already having. And those are two completely different vibrational fields. impossible to confuse. Prayer, in its deepest sense, is an energetic declaration. It is the act of returning to the position where you remember that everything you seek is not outside, but always present within the informational field of creation. The question is not whether it exists. The question is whether you are still enough to match its wave. Any words not arising from this state are merely echoes falling into emptiness. You may spend a lifetime repeating a prayer, but if your mind remains in the state of pleading, the universe will understand that you wish to remain in that state, not because the universe is mocking you, but because this system does not operate on promises, it operates on present vibration. What you align with is what you live with, and what you live with is what will appear more in your life. The sacredness of prayer does not lie in form, it lies in the quality of harmony. A moment when you step into deep gratitude not for something specific, but simply because you exist, is already an invisible prayer more powerful than 1,000 words. When you feel peace without needing a reason, you are already living in the frequency where peace truly resides. And when that happens, everything you seek comes to you like metal drawn to a magnetic field. Prayer should not be words from a distance. It is the confirmation that there is no distance at all, that you and what you reach for have already merged into one wave. And in that moment, you are no longer someone trying, you are someone remembering the truth that you are not lacking, not alone, not abandoned, not waiting for a distant miracle. You are part of a system operating under the perfect law of synchronization. When you understand this, you no longer pray as a weak supplicant. You pray as a co-creator, as a participant in the sacred network, knowing that whatever is emitted with clear vibration will always return to its source, not by chance, not by pity, but by the natural principle of interaction between frequency and form. Every prayer is a signal, but only the prayers emitted from the frequency of already having truly become a calling. And when you live from the place where words are no longer necessary, life begins to respond as if it has been waiting for you all along. No signs needed, no announcement required, only the synchronization between inner state and reality. Prayer is not asking. It is the spiritual act of someone who has remembered who they are, who has realized that everything is already present, and that the only necessity is to adjust oneself to the right frequency. When you do that, the universe cannot help but respond, not because you are pitiful, but because you have become a clear part of the very essence of what you desire. Hope is the expectation that something might happen. Faith is the certainty that it already exists, even if it cannot yet be seen with the physical eye. Hope looks toward the future, while faith lives in the present. And this very difference creates two completely opposite frequencies. One emits the vibration of waiting, of absence, of incompleteness. The other emits affirmation, fullness, and presence. In the operating system of the universe, only one frequency brings results, the frequency of what is already complete. That is the frequency of faith. Faith is not a passing emotion. It is not optimism when everything is smooth, nor a fragment of trust when you still have other options to cling to. Faith is a stable state of being, unmoved by external conditions. It does not need evidence. It does not wait for confirmation, because faith itself is confirmation. When you truly believe, you do not ask again. You do not search for more signs. You do not need anyone's reassurance. You simply live from it as though it is already true. And it is this that makes the frequency you emit so powerful it cannot be denied. Hope is often praised as a positive quality, but if hope is not transformed into faith, it will keep you in a state of waiting. Hope can help you rise after a fall, but it is faith that allows you to keep walking without doubt. Hope asks, is it possible? Faith answers, it already island. And from that answer, every action, emotion, and vibration begins to change completely. The frequency of faith does not need to be loud. It does not need repetition. It only needs consistency. When you live in faith, you no longer act from fear. You are not rushed. You do not force. Every movement becomes calm, steady, and full of presence. Because within you there are no more questions. You do not need to know exactly how what you desire will happen. You only need to hold steady the frequency as though it has already happened. And when you do that, the pieces begin to move themselves to find you. Faith does not depend on knowledge. You do not need to understand the mechanics of the universe to believe, just as you do not need to understand the structure of an engine to start a car and know it will run. Faith is not in the mind. It is held in the deeper layer of consciousness where you no longer struggle with your own belief. And when you reach that vibrational layer, you no longer need to command reality. You have become reality. What makes faith different is the absolute harmony between thought, emotion, and action. You do not just think something is possible, you feel it as truth. You act in accordance with it. And this harmony makes the vibration you emit a stable, strong, and clear wave. Nothing in the universe can resist a clear vibration, because a clear vibration is a true vibration, and what is true must take form. On the other hand, when you only hope, you constantly check, question, and swing between belief and doubt. One day you feel excited, another day you sink into worry. This instability causes the wave you emit to constantly change, and the universe cannot synchronize with an inconsistent broadcast. That is why hope, no matter how sincere, if not steadied into faith, will only leave you weary in the loop of waiting and disappointment. Faith is not denial of the present reality. It is not pretending you are living the ideal life when clearly you are not. Faith is accepting the present as it is, but not letting it define you. You may be ill, yet live with faith in health. You may be lonely, yet live in the vibration of love. You deny nothing. You simply do not synchronize with what you do not choose. There are people who have never spoken the word faith, yet they live in that frequency every day. They do not need to pray much. They do not need to repeat affirmations. They simply remain in inner certainty, and from that, every action they take carries power. These are often the people who find life responding in miraculous ways, not because they are lucky, but because they are clear. And there are also those who pray daily, read every book, study every method, yet still live in doubt, contradiction, and fluctuation. They think they lack technique, but what they truly lack is vibrational stability. A belief not made clear cannot become a frequency, and if it is not a frequency, it will not emit a wave, and if no wave is emitted, nothing can respond. Faith does not demand conditions, it only requires a choice. You do not need to feel perfect to believe. You only need to choose to hold the vibration of what you want, not because of evidence, but because you understand that every reality begins from a vibrational state, and vibration does not come from outside, it is established from within. When you live from faith, you find yourself speaking less, arguing less, needing less proof. You do not need anyone to understand. You do not need anyone's agreement, because you know. And that knowing does not come from the mind. It comes from the deep layer of harmony between your essence and the essence of what you choose to align with. Faith is frequency. Once emitted correctly, it is like a carrier wave without interference, transmitting without limit, and returning as an undeniable response. Not because you are better than others, not because you are lucky, but because you have lived fully in the frequency of what you have already believed. You do not need to create what you desire. You do not need to invent happiness, construct abundance, or force yourself to believe that good things will come. The simple, unshakable truth is this: all possibilities already exist. The love you seek, the job you long for, the health you dream of, they all already exist as separate channels of frequency, ready to be received. You are not the one who creates the wave. You are the receiver, and your life is the recording of the frequency you have silently synchronized with. A radio does not invent music. It only needs to be tuned to the right frequency for the music to be heard. A television does not create the program. It only displays the image corresponding to the channel it picks up. And you, in the same way, do not need to force life to run according to your will. You only need to choose the right frequency, hold the connection steady, and everything else will gradually become visible. We have been taught wrongly about the nature of power. We think we need to sketch out the future, to struggle to manifest what we want. But struggle is the sign of a misaligned wave. Continuous yearning is proof of a state of lack, and the inner tension of trying to get only pushes you further away from the frequency of what already exists within the energy field of the universe. This world does not need you to strain to create miracles. The miracle is already there, waiting for you to step into its rhythm. You cannot call in a frequency you are not aligned with. But when you catch the right channel, not by luck, but by the subtle choice of vibration, what you have been waiting for will appear as a natural extension of yourself. This truth frees you from the burden. You are no longer the wanderer searching for light. You are the receiver learning to clear interference, refine the antenna, and be still enough to listen to what is already present. What you need is not on the horizon. It is within the wave you are awake enough to access. Every possibility, from the worst to the most miraculous, already exists in vibrational form within the field of information. Some of you have once synchronized with pain, doubt, or chaos, not because you wanted them, but because your inner frequency matched them. But if you have ever broadcast what you did not want and received it, then you can also broadcast something else and receive something else. Not because you learned something new, but because you remembered this. You are the receiver, not the inventor. This also means no dream is impossible, because you do not need to create it from nothing. You only need to align with the version of yourself of reality where it is already true. You do not build the dream from bricks and stones. You only become the one compatible with its wave. And to do that, you do not need extraordinary strength. You only need to let go of misalignment, the unconscious fears, the hidden doubts, the invisible affirmations that whisper, "I am not enough." A weak receiver is not weak because it lacks ability. It is weak because it is full of static, tuned to the wrong frequency, or blocked by unnecessary coverings. In the same way, if you do not see what you desire, do not ask, "How do I create it?" Instead ask, "What wave am I blocking? What am I aligned with?" And in that very question, you begin to remember that everything you are seeking is waiting for you to recall how to receive it. We live in an ocean of frequencies. Every thought you hold, every emotion you embrace, every behavior you repeat is like turning the dial. Not once is enough. It is the steady, conscious, consistent repetition. That is why those with consistent inner states often attract what seems impossible, not because they are better, but because they are more precise in alignment. Frequency does not distinguish who is worthy. It only recognizes compatibility. When you tune to the right wave, you do not need permission. You do not need to prove yourself. You do not need to have enough of anything. You only need to be clear, because clarity is the strongest signal in the vibrational world, and the universe cannot ignore a clear broadcast. You do not need to go far to reach what you need. You only need to step into the version of yourself who already has it. Behavior will change, emotions will shift, tone, decisions, and state of being will transform, but not because you deliberately forced them, because you changed the wave. And when the frequency changes, everything outside is only the consequence. There is no need to exhaust yourself searching for more methods. Return to the first principle. You do not create what you want, you only learn to tune into it. And in silence deep enough, in gratitude without reason, in the moment you stop trying, you will begin to notice the small signals. Those signals are not imagination. They are the first fragments of the wave of the reality you have just connected with. Do not push them away with doubt. Do not interfere with them by checking constantly. Let them come as the wind comes to a sail already raised. You are not the one begging for waves. You are the receiver capable of tuning into any wave that matches. And the choice lies in your hands. Every moment, every thought, every emotion, every action, all are sending signals of what you are aligned with. And if there is something you want but do not yet see, do not look for it out there. Adjust within. The right vibration will draw the right thing to you. You do not need to create the miracle. You only need to become the one who can receive it. The space around you is not empty. It is a continuous, living energy field that is always listening. Not listening with ears, not observing with eyes, but sensing through waves. That energy field does not judge, does not select, does not discriminate. It only does one thing: responds precisely to the frequency you emit. No more, no less, no distortion, no rush. You do not live in a static world. You live in an ocean of information, where every unit of emotion, every repeated thought, every underlying belief is encoded into waves. These waves do not disappear. They propagate, merge into the energy field surrounding you, and form a unique vibrational pattern. The reality you are experiencing is nothing more than the exact response of that field, an invisible mirror reflecting your inner state, never missing an appointment. The energy field does not care what you say you want. It does not care how worthy you are, how hard you have tried, or where you stand on the scale of human value. It does not respond by sentiment. It responds by the alignment of frequency. And if your frequency matches lack, you will see lack appearing everywhere. If you live in genuine gratitude, you will see everything around you begin to bloom, not because they have just bloomed, but because your eyes have just been retuned to the wave of abundance. You have encountered people whose mere presence changes the atmosphere of a room, not because they said anything special, but because their energy field is clear enough. It radiates before they even speak. You have also seen people who always seem lucky, always helped, always attracting opportunities that look almost unexpected. That is not coincidence. That is the response of an energy field built, day by day, through seemingly small choices. Choosing trust where doubt is easy, choosing release where holding on is easy, choosing peace where reaction is easy. No energy is wasted. Everything you think, everything you feel, leaves a vibrational trace in the space around you. And when strong enough, consistent enough, that personal energy field becomes a vibrational magnet. It does not need to chase. It draws in. It does not need forced effort, only alignment. To understand this is to understand the real operating principle of prayer, of reality creation, of the things once thought inexplicable. Because once you emit a clear signal, you are issuing a command into the underlying structure of the energy field. And that field, neutral, precise, without delay, begins rearranging the surrounding factors to respond, not by mysticism, but by the logic of vibration. The energy field does not selectively help you. It only selectively responds to you. This means, if you sustain the frequency of a victim, you will continue to be given the role of a victim. If you sustain the frequency of a creator, you will find yourself placed in positions of leadership rather than being controlled. No person is the product of circumstance. Every person is the center of an energy feedback field, and that field operates constantly without needing your command. You do not need to become someone great to create a strong energy field. You only need to be honest about your vibration, honest with fear but not broadcasting it, honest with the past but not reliving it, honest with the dream but not turning it into an excuse to deny the present. Whatever you harmonize with, positive or negative, will return to you as experience. You do not need to control the world. You only need to clear the noise within. When you do that, your personal energy field will automatically shift, and the responses from the outer world will begin to redirect, not because you cast a spell, but because you changed the wave, and the energy field cannot help but respond to the new wave. The stability of the field does not come from perfection. It comes from deliberate choice. You can choose peace in chaos, choose gratitude in lack, choose trust in doubt. These choices do not instantly change the world, but they change you. And when you change, the world with all its invisible feedback systems begins to reshape itself. You do not need to prove this true. Just observe. Recall the times you felt peace without reason and everything unfolded smoothly. The times you worried for no reason and trouble arrived as if summoned. The times you released fear and doors opened without explanation. All are living expressions of the energy field responding to the right frequency. When you walk as though what you desire has already come, you are sending a definite signal. When you give thanks even before the miracle arrives, you are commanding the energy field to respond not to hope, but to confirmation. And that field, like an intelligent operating system, will rearrange reality to match the signal you have programmed. Everything you are living is the exact response of the energy field you are broadcasting, and this is not for you to fear. It is for you to clearly see your power. Power does not lie in surface action. It lies in the fine-tuning of the foundational vibration. You do not need to change everything at once. You only need to change the field. The field will do the rest for you. Imagination is not daydreaming. It is not a game of the mind, nor an escape from reality. Imagination is the mechanism through which the soul transmits signals into the universal energy field. It is the first and most profound means for you to determine what is being broadcast from within. Before a vibration can be registered, it must take form, and imagination is the place where the first image of frequency is born. Imagination is the language the subconscious listens to. You cannot speak to the subconscious with reasoning, with analysis, or with complex words, but a clear image, deeply felt, will imprint itself into the deepest layer of being as a vibrational command code. And when that code is stable enough, it becomes a broadcast signal, and the entire energy field around you will begin to synchronize with that frequency, whether you are conscious of it or not. If emotion is propulsion, then imagination is the map. You cannot go to a place you have never envisioned. You cannot broadcast something that within you has no corresponding inner image, and therefore you cannot live a new reality with an old vibration. You must awaken vivid, clear, multi-layered imagery, accompanied by corresponding emotion, to begin the process of reshaping frequency. Imagination does not need logic. It does not require artistic skill or storytelling ability. It only needs your true presence within the scene. When you imagine, you do not watch from the outside. You live within it. You do not see abundance. You feel it. You do not watch yourself being healed. You are the one already healthy, moving, breathing, living as if it has happened. That feeling, not the image, is what the universe listens to. Effective imagination does not come from duration, but from sharpness and vibrational focus. A moment of deep, complete, honest imagination, without contradiction, creates a stronger vibration than hours of shallow thought, because the subconscious does not distinguish between real or imagined. It only stores what is felt as real, and once stored, it activates biological, psychological, emotional systems and brings forth synchronized responses from the outside. That is why those who live in fear often find their fears come true. They imagine what they do not want, over and over, attaching strong emotion to it. No one calls it imagination, but in essence, they are practicing a form of negative prayer through imagination driven by worry. And the universe, as neutral as always, only responds to the exact frequency being transmitted. On the other hand, those who know how to use imagination as a deliberate tool will see the world begin to shift without having to force anything. They do not beg. They do not coerce. They simply spend time each day immersing themselves in the vibration of the future version they choose to live with. And that, though not immediately visible, gradually creates an invisible shift in the energy field. Imagination is not deceiving yourself. It is the re-establishment of inner reality, so that from there you can live in a new frequency before anything outside has taken form. You do not wait for the world to change to believe. You believe without reason, and then the world begins to reflect what you have already lived inside. This mechanism is not purely spiritual. It is an energetic process where inner images become streams of signal entering the vibrational structure of the universe. To use imagination correctly, you must release the need to control. Imagination is not a detailed plan. It is not a tool to calculate the how. It is the doorway for you to step into a different vibrational state, where you do not need to know how everything will come, only to know clearly the feeling of when it already has. All technical details will be handled by the energy field. Your job is not to control the process. Your job is to hold the image and the accompanying emotion steady. You do not need to imagine something too distant. Begin with simple scenes: a room you want to live in, a conversation you long to have, a gentle feeling when you wake in the morning. Do not force yourself to see a perfect image. Let the image arise from true emotion. When the emotion is clear enough, the image sharpens automatically. And when the image is sharp enough, the vibration is automatically broadcast as a wave that cannot be mistaken. A few minutes of deep imagination each day will alter your inner structure more powerfully than any affirmation. And when that imagination no longer comes from yearning but from harmony, you will see that what you imagined is no longer the future. It is a vibrational present, already beginning to imprint itself onto the material layer. You do not need anyone's confirmation. You only need to trust your own access to the corresponding frequency. And imagination is the bridge between the you of today and the you aligned with what you are reaching for. No one else can build that bridge for you, and no one can walk across it in your place. But when you imagine with true presence, you are no longer walking alone. The energy field begins to resonate. Events begin to reorganize. The impossible begins to arrive. Imagination is not the beginning of a dream. It is the mechanism by which you transmit your wave to the universe. And from that signal, a version of what you choose begins to be constructed in the layer of reality. It is not the image you imagine, not the affirmation you recite, nor the goal you write on paper. What determines the intensity and precision of the vibrational signal you emit is emotion, and not just any emotion but true emotion, because in the vibrational structure of the universe, emotion does not play a supporting role. It is the conductor, the pathway, the current that carries an idea beyond the level of the mind and merges it into the energy field. No matter how clear the image you visualize, if the accompanying emotion is not genuine, the entire signal will still be blurred, distorted, or simply go nowhere. Just like a beautiful wire without electricity, it does not create impact. True emotion is the current flowing through ideas, transforming them into vibrations strong enough to influence reality. Truth here does not mean you must feel positive emotions. Truth does not distinguish between positive or negative. It is the alignment between the vibration you express and the deepest emotion within you. Words of love without genuine feeling are only sound. A prayer that does not stir the heart is only an echo in space. But a single breath filled with gratitude, even without words, can move the entire energy field. The universe does not measure the content of actions. It measures vibration. And vibration is determined by the degree of emotional honesty. When you imagine a vivid future version of yourself but feel doubt, unease, or falseness, what you are truly broadcasting is not the image, it is the underlying emotion. And the energy field will respond exactly to that, with no margin of error. That is why the first step is not to imagine the best outcome, but to be honest with your current emotions. If there is fear within you, look at it directly, without judgment. If there is doubt, listen to it as a signal that needs decoding, because you cannot build a new vibration on the old vibration still being denied. And you cannot transmit a clear signal if the emotional current within is still covered. When you touch your true emotion, you begin to have the power to adjust the wave, not by denying negative emotions, but by shifting your stance as you experience them. Fear does not need to be eliminated. It only needs to be enveloped with presence. Anxiety does not need to be suppressed. It only needs to be met with the frequency of understanding. And the moment you stop avoiding emotion, you begin to own it as an energetic material capable of being refined, elevated, transformed. True emotion is the strongest signal you can send into the energy field, not because it is loud, but because it is clear. And clarity, in the vibrational world, is everything. 1 minute of living fully in genuine gratitude carries more power than hours of prayer while the soul is still scattered. A single moment of silence filled with love can strike the energy field more deeply than hundreds of affirmations that have not touched the depths of emotion. And once you touch true emotion, you no longer need to convince the universe. You do not need to repeat the right words, nor follow a strict process. Every gesture, every thought, every decision begins naturally flowing with the new frequency you are sustaining. And in that very moment, you become a living transmitter, continuously sending wordless commands into the feedback system of the world. The power of true emotion is also why those who suffer deeply often create the greatest transformations. Not because pain is grand, but because when pain is truly touched, not denied, not suppressed, it becomes the fuel for awakening. And from that point, people begin to emit a new vibration, not that of a victim, but of one who has broken through the shell and become transparent. Within you, there are always two layers, the layer of action and the layer of emotion. And the emotional layer is where the real signal originates. When these two are not aligned, the signal is distorted. When you act one way but feel another, what the universe receives is the emotional frequency, not the action. And you will see life respond in a reversed way, leaving you confused about where you went wrong. But there is no wrong. There is only a lack of honesty in vibration. If you want to change what you receive, return to see what you are broadcasting. And to broadcast something different, you do not need to force cheerfulness or optimism. You only need to reconnect with the true emotion within and choose to nurture a new frequency from there. Emotion cannot be forced, but it can be guided, elevated, refined if you dare to look directly, to stay present, to love even the part of vibration once called weakness. Nothing touches the universe more than an honest heart, and nothing creates greater change than a sincere emotion lived fully. No reasoning, no technique, just a vibration that is true, clear, deep, and unopposed. Because in the world of energy, what is true will take form. It is not about what you want, but about how clear you are about wanting it. It is not about how you pray, but about whether you are broadcasting a consistent signal. In the world of frequency and energetic response, inner clarity is what determines the strength, the reach, and the precision of the wave you send out. And when the wave is clear enough, the universe has no choice but to respond exactly to that signal. An unclear thought does not create a strong wave. A hesitant desire cannot transmit energy. A goal that exists only on paper but has not been fully lived in feeling and inner state is still just a string of words without vibration. The universe does not read a summary list of desires. It only responds to signals as clear as commands, emanating from a place within you where there is no doubt, no conflict, no hidden struggle. Clarity is not about how many times you repeat what you want. It is about how truly you live it in thought, in emotion, in daily choices. If you say you want peace, but each day you continue to nurture worry, follow things that unsettle you, participate in negative conversations, then the wave you are broadcasting is not peace. And the energy field, like a neutral mirror, will continue to reflect what you are truly sustaining. Clarity is synchronization. When thought, emotion, and action all move toward one point, the wave emitted becomes so strong it cannot be distorted. And the moment you reach this point, you do not need to strive, you do not need to push, you only need to live, and reality will automatically adjust to match the frequency already sent out. This is not theory. This is the natural operating mechanism of all energy fields. One of the reasons many people do not see their desires become reality is because they do not realize that inner vagueness is what distorts the wave. They have desire, but no decision. They have dreams, but no presence. They have prayers, but live in doubt. And that creates a mixed vibration. The universe cannot clearly understand what you are truly choosing. Clarity does not demand perfection. It only requires decisiveness in what you choose, that you no longer go back and forth between two options, that you have let go of plan B, that you do not keep a backup for your true dream. When you still keep backups, the universe understands you are not ready. When you still keep other doors just in case, you have not truly broadcast your choice, and a weak wave cannot travel far. You have seen people who had nothing in their hands yet achieved what seemed impossible, because they were clear. They chose. They lived as though that was the only reality, and the wave they emitted even without words was strong enough to move circumstances, people, events, opportunities. And there are those who had all the resources, yet went nowhere, because within them was indecision, and the universe does not serve indecision, it only serves consistency. Clarity is also the highest energetic action. No need to shout, no need to prove, no need to explain to anyone. You only need to know. Know to the point where you no longer need to repeat. Know to the point where you no longer need to ask again. Know to the point where every action of yours naturally aligns with it, not because of force, but because in your perception there is no other option. To emit a strong wave, you must clear within, clear the conflicts, clear the old beliefs, clear the half-hearted thoughts, clear the habits of action that no longer match the version of yourself you want to become. And when you clear until only one direction remains, one vibration, one inner image, then you broadcast like a beam of light, clear, penetrating, unmistakable. The strongest signal is not the most complicated one. It is the streamlined, sharp signal, free of inner opposition. A person who wants love but still believes, "I am not worthy," is emitting two opposing signals. A person who wants success but believes, "Good things are not for me," is distorting their own wave, and every distortion makes the signal weaker, fragmented, unable to resonate. You do not need to strain yourself to be clear. You only need to choose honestly and consistently, and then live as though that choice is already established. You do not need to repeat your desire daily. You only need to live every moment from the state of already chosen, and that state, when stable enough, will begin to recreate the outer circumstances to match your inner being. In the world of vibration, clarity is power. Clarity is permission. Clarity is the signal the universe cannot ignore. Not everything you desire is broadcast as a clear signal. Not every prayer you speak is received the way you think, because in the world of energy, what determines the quality of the signal is not surface desire, but the degree of inner consistency. A signal only becomes strong when there are no counterwaves being emitted from within you. And this is why inner conflict is what silently breaks the frequency you want. You may imagine a radiant future, but if beneath it lies a sense of unworthiness, the signal you are sending is not light, but doubt. You may recite hundreds of affirmations every morning, but if each time your heart tightens with fear that it will not come, then what the energy field is receiving is not the content of the words, but the anxiety that accompanies them. And energy, like a perfectly precise recorder, never responds to what you say, but to the vibration you are truly living. Inner conflict is invisible and unheard, but it is what most strongly distorts the wave. It is when you want success but believe someone like you cannot achieve it. It is when you want love, but fear being abandoned. It is when you pray for peace, yet keep relationships that wound you deeply. And when these frequencies overlap, collide, and cancel one another, the signal emitted from you becomes blurred, weak, and scattered. In that state, the energy field does not know what you are truly choosing. And when there is no clear signal, it cannot give a clear response. It is not because the universe rejects you. It is because you are denying what you want through beliefs, emotions, and actions that are off frequency, even if you do not realize it. To change reality, you cannot only focus on what you want. You must go deeper within to uncover the fragments of vibration that are betraying it. Betraying silently, in the form of self-talk such as, "I will never get better. Who would ever love someone like me? It's too late for me to start again." And each of those statements, even fleeting, leaves a vibrational trace. When accumulated, they create counterwaves that quietly pull back the signal you are trying to send. The truth is, you cannot deceive the universe. You can only be honest with yourself. You cannot broadcast the frequency of abundance if you are still holding on to unresolved memories of lack. You cannot transmit the wave of health if you still carry distorted definitions of body, illness, and limitation. And you cannot live in the frequency of love if you are still storing unacknowledged wounds. Therefore, the first step to cleaning the signal is not to force yourself to think positively. It is to courageously face the inner conflicts you have avoided. They are not shameful. They are simply old waves, waiting to be brought into light for recalibration. They have no power over you if you dare to look directly, to listen, and to consciously transform them. A distorted frequency does not need punishment, it only needs adjustment. When you begin to be honest, you will notice something strange. Even if the external reality has not yet changed, within you there begins to be more clarity. And that clarity itself is the new signal. You do not need to completely eliminate inner conflict before you can live what you desire. You only need to stop letting it control your current actions and feelings, because power does not come from perfection. It comes from conscious choice, right in the midst of fragmentation. Inner conflict often comes from the past, from experiences misunderstood, from wounds unhealed, from beliefs imposed on you by others that you never questioned. But the past cannot hold you if you refuse to keep vibrating with it. And at that point, you begin to release old energy and replace it with new frequency. Once you are no longer sending out contradictory signals, the wave you emit will become singular, deep, strong, and capable of impacting the structure of reality quickly. That is when you notice things flow more smoothly, opportunities come more easily, the right people appear more naturally. There is no miracle. There is only a being who has recalibrated its own transparency, no longer conflicted with what it wants. And if something has still not come, do not see it as failure. See it as a vibrational indicator, showing that inside you there remain signals slightly off frequency. It is an invitation to look within, to check if there is a belief not truly serving you, an emotion not yet released, a memory you are still holding without knowing. Each time you do this, you are not weakening the signal, you are purifying it. The universe does not need you to be perfect. It only needs you to be clear. And to be clear, you must move through inner conflict, not by suppression, but by conscious acceptance and re-choosing. For a being that has achieved inner harmony, even without outer results, yet always emits a wave many times stronger. No radio can transmit two channels at once. No broadcasting device can send out signal A while simultaneously holding signal B. And you, with all the complexity and subtlety of a vibrational being, are no exception to that law. You cannot broadcast two frequencies at the same time. Even if you want love but still harbor hate, want to move forward but still carry fear, want abundance but still emit the vibration of lack, reality will never respond to both. It only chooses one, and it always chooses the dominant frequency. The dominant frequency is not what you repeat many times in words. It is the state you sustain most consistently in silence. It is the lingering feeling you carry in your heart when no one is watching, the automatic reaction you have never questioned, the way you see the world every morning when you wake up without needing to think. In one day, you may think of hundreds of things, but the energy field does not record them all. It only synchronizes with the stable average frequency you are emitting continuously. The issue is not whether you have negative moments. Every human does. The issue is whether you live in that frequency as your default state. Because even if for just 1 minute you live fully in a frequency that is clear, undistorted, and without contradiction, then in that very minute, you have broadcast the purest signal the universe can receive. But if you step out of that minute and spend the rest of the day in doubt, fear, or defensiveness, then clearly, which signal becomes the dominant wave? You cannot expect positive outcomes if within you the vibrational mechanism of the negative is still being maintained. Two frequencies cannot coexist simultaneously in the same system. This is not an encouragement to deny or suppress bad emotions, but to recognize and re-choose before allowing them to dominate your entire being. Just as light and darkness cannot share the same space, either light is present or darkness rules. When you turn on the light, darkness does not argue, it simply disappears. Likewise, when you hold a frequency that is clear and strong, whether it is peace, gratitude, or presence, distorted vibrations will naturally recede. No fighting is required, only shifting the wave. But if you continue to nurture both holding the desire while also holding the worry that it will not come, then you are not truly broadcasting anything at all. More accurately, the signal you are sending is being cancelled out by yourself. And the universe, not receiving a clear command, will leave things exactly as they are. To vibrate effectively, you must learn to choose one wave and remain with it. It is not always easy, but every time you notice yourself off frequency, that is a victory. Every time you adjust your stance, breathe, and return to the frequency you have chosen, you are sending out a new command, sharp, steady, intentional. And that is how the world begins to change, not through surface action, but through loyalty to the single frequency you truly want to live in. When you choose trust, then every complaint must be released. When you choose peace, then every reason for stress must fall away. When you choose abundance, then you can no longer sustain behaviors born of fear of loss. And even if one fragment of the old remains, it is enough to distort the signal. This is why many people exert effort but results still do not come. Not because they are unworthy, but because they have not realized they are living between two conflicting frequencies. Part of them longs for the new, but another part is still bound to the old. They step forward with one foot, while the other clings to the comfort zone. And so, they do not truly advance. They only circle. Choosing one frequency does not mean rejecting all other parts of yourself. It is a conscious decision to send a clear signal into the energetic realm. No need to shout, no need to display. You only need to know clearly what you are choosing. And whenever you notice yourself drifting away from it, gently return. No self-blame, no panic, just return. Because it is precisely that consistent returning which creates stability. And stability is the core element in the world of vibration. You do not need to be perfect to broadcast a single frequency. You only need to be consistent. And consistency does not mean never drifting. It only means that each time you drift, you do not stay there for long. You return. You cleanse. You reorient. And little by little, the frequency you choose will begin to be permanently imprinted in your energetic operating system. And once that happens, you no longer need to beg. You no longer need to attract. You only need to sustain the single frequency you have chosen to live with. Everything else will automatically synchronize. No one can live with two frequencies at once, and you do not need to, because once you choose, clearly and decisively, the entire universe will begin to rearrange itself to respond precisely to the signal you have just sent. Not every action creates movement. Not every effort changes reality. Because in the world of vibration, what determines the outcome is not what you do, but the frequency from which you do it. Action born of lack will only generate more vibrations of lack. Action born of firm faith will send out waves